Hi there, this is Mike from Stagecoach Road Vintage Sewing Machine Restoration, and today we're going to restore a Singer Featherweight. If you have a black featherweight or a white featherweight, there will be some very minor differences. Like on the white one, the fold-up bed goes on slightly differently, and there are a few other little things, but if you are at all handy, you should be able to figure that out, figure out the differences really easily. I've already done the video for the tension assembly, and you'll be able to find that if you search Stagecoach Road Vintage Sewing Machine Featherweight Tension Restoration, or just Stagecoach Road Sewing Featherweight Tension Assembly. So we're not going to go over that again. We'll take it off, of course, but I'm not going to go over it step by step. Start by taking out your needle. Loosen the needle clamp, take the needle out. You can use your thumbnail to feel for any burrs on the tip of the needle, and make sure that it's not bent. And if it's a good shape, you can keep reusing it. We generally replace the needle just as a matter of course, because the root of quite a few problems with sewing machines is a problem with the needle. Next, raise your presser foot. Remove the thumb screw that holds the presser foot on, and remove your presser foot. Your thread cutter is just spring loaded, so you work it back and forth while you pull it down and off of the presser bar. Tension assembly, knurled nut comes off, and everything else will just slide off in one piece. And again, look at the other video to see how to put it back together right. So the plate on the back is held on with one screw. Your faceplate is held on by this single thumb screw on the front. Be careful it doesn't drop off and chip the paint. Set that aside where it'll be nice and safe. Look your machine over and see if there are any spots on the aluminum bed where the paint is starting to look like it's bubbling. That is oxidation of the aluminum underneath the paint, and the only way to fix that is to scrape it off, sand it down, use a little bit of get a tube of Bondo spot filler and smooth it out, sand it nice and flush with the machine, prime it and paint it, or just sew on it. Not going to make anything worse to just leave it as is, but if you want it to be pretty and you want to do a whole thing, you're going to have to mask things off and repaint the bed. You can buy the decals for the older machines online. You'll find them on eBay, or if you just Google Featherweight sewing machine decals, you'll find them. Okay, inside here, this is the presser bar. This raises and lowers your presser foot. And you'll notice this thing, when I raise the presser foot, this lever pushes forward. That lever is pushing a little pin that goes down the split shaft of the tension assembly, and it pushes the plates apart when you raise your presser foot, so you can pull your fabric out without having tension on the thread in your needle, which will bend your needle. Let's see, and that little pin is right there. Don't lose it. It's just a little straight pin that goes inside that split shaft. Okay, and I inadvertently took off my bobbin case and bobbin. Bobbin case will go on the parts to be washed. The bobbin will not, mainly because it's already packed with thread. So we have your presser bar, we have your tension relief assembly here. It's got a little spring on it. You'll see when I take it off. This is your needle bar. That's what makes your needle go up and down. You can see the linkages in there that make it go round and round. This is your take-up lever, which pulls your thread up tight as you make each stitch. Locks your lock stitch in. Okay, we're going to take off your presser foot pressure adjuster, which is this knob here. It just screws out. And this probably got a name, the shaft underneath it, has the spring attached to it. On other models, it's the same on the Singer 99. It's got the same type of spring assembly. On most vintage Singers, the presser bar is one piece and the spring goes over the top of the presser bar, but that's how this one is, and it goes down inside of this last little bit of presser bar there. This block here is your adjustment for the height of your presser bar. So you just loosen that set screw a little bit, and usually it's kind of blocked in by old dried up oil. So I give a tiny squirt of WD-40 above and below that adjustment block, and then I put my the thumb screw back in to be kind of a little handle, and I tighten it all the way down so that that when I use it as a handle, the pressure isn't on the threaded shaft, but it's on the place where the screw actually contacts the presser bar. But then with the WD-40 in there, it'll break up that old dried on oil, and you can work it up and down until it moves nice and smoothly through that adjustment block. And take that thumb screw back off. Into the adjustment block is loose. We're going to have to take off the needle plate and go down that way. On most Singers, the presser bar comes up and out, but I think this one is a little bit larger diameter because the spring goes down into it on this model. This is a really handy little wrench to have. It's an offset ratchet screwdriver, and it holds the various type of bits. It gives you lots of leverage for popping loose stuck screws, and it's good in tight places where you can't just get a screwdriver in there. Right now we're inside the mobile mini shop down here in the Sonoran Desert between California and Arizona, almost down to the Mexican border. I think the Mexican border is 16 miles away or so. It's balmy, sunny, nice day out there, probably mid-70s. Your needle plate on this machine is also the piece that centers your bobbin case, or your bobbin race that the bobbin case goes into. And I see that it's already been it out of place. There's a finger on your on that race that points straight up, and when your needle plate is in place, that little finger will go in this slot right here. It'll look like that. The finger will be in there, and your bobbin race won't be able to move, but the hook will rotate around it. That's not important right now, but when you put it back together, that will be, because that's how you set the bobbin race. We'll take the needle plate out, and hopefully this will slide down alongside the hook and come on out. Maybe not, I don't know. I'd have to take the hook out to do that. All right. These are the feed dogs here that move the fabric. You can see when you cycle the machine, the feed dogs go over, up, back, where it pulls the fabric, then back down below the needle plate, and over, then back up again. So the teeth stick out of the needle plate. I'll drag your fabric over for the next stitch, then it'll go down out of the way while the needle goes in and makes the stitch. It'll go up, over, down, up, over, down. I'll cycle like that. But we're going to take it out so we can put it in the alcohol bath and wash it. These are usually pretty stuck. Not too bad on this one. This machine was just almost absolutely pristine when I found it. It's got a little tiny wear point right there where the paint's a little bit chipped. But otherwise, it's just looks like a new machine. There are 2 screws that hold your feed dogs on every machine I've ever seen. I mentioned that this is our winter location. I live in Oregon, and that's where our main shop is. But Oregon in the winter, in the fall, winter, and spring is wet, rainy, mucky, mold, mildew, moss. It's beautiful, but it kind of gets old. So we're down here in the nice arid Sonoran Desert. Okay, that's the, I should show you that. This is what the feed dog looks like when it's off. Those 2 screw holes, of course, correspond to the 2 holes in the part that moves it. This part here that presses the release pin for the upper tension has a shouldered screw in it, so that when the screw is tight, that the part can still move behind it. You can probably see that little shoulder on the screw. Remember that, because that's the screw that you want to go back into this piece. Don't lose the little spring there. You know, to take this all the way out, I think that I would have to take the hook off, and that's something that we don't really need to deal with now. And let me try one more time to lift that out of there, even though I suspect it's an exercise in futility. Yeah, it's just too fat to go through there. So I think that we will just clean this piece in place. The older types of paint, you don't want to get alcohol or soapy water, or even water if you can avoid it, on the old black finishes, because with the shellac coating, it turns it cloudy and ugly, and alcohol will dissolve all the decorative gold trim or gold decaling on it. So yeah, we'll just leave that little block in place, and we'll clean it in place. The needle clamp. The needle clamp has a little thread guide at the bottom, and it's got a little set screw in the back of it here. And this little thread guide is kind of special, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. I'm going to give it a tiny shot of WD-40 in here. WD-40 is a great solvent. As a lubricant, it's a pretty temporary measure because it dries out super quick. But it's great at breaking up old grease and oil. And if you have parts that are stuck together and don't move easily, it'll break that up. I don't particularly like getting it all over me, but it seems fairly benign. Now, let's see. There we go. Okay, now the reason for our struggle with that is you'll see that this thread guide is attached to this little drum-shaped I don't know what you even want to call that thing, but there's a recess on the back of the needle bar that this fits into, and in order to move the needle clamp up or down, this has to be pressed in tight to that hole in the back of the needle bar. Pain in the neck. So the needle bar wants to come out next, and it's held in by this clamp right here. Most machines you have to go in through a little hole in the back of the housing here, and the screw is in the back of that clamp. This one's a little more convenient, and you just loosen that set screw with a slightly smaller screwdriver. Or with this screwdriver. Lots of pressure so it doesn't slip out of the slot. Damage the screw, which it's making it ugly. So let's see. The right screwdriver for the right screw, very important. There we go. That little pop when it breaks the old dried on oil seal. This needle bar clamp is pretty easy to access. The screw is right here. You just loosen it a little bit. You don't have to take it out. And then again, held in by a little bit of dried oil, and that's super common. Put a little bit of WD-40 will just melt that stuff right away. So what I'm going to do is I have some leather, split leather here, And anytime I want to use pliers on a piece of metal, I always wrap it with leather so you don't damage the piece. And again, you just have to work it a little bit to let the WD-40 get in and break up that old varnished oil. Let's see. And then you can just push it on up, and it should go on out the top. Hopefully, unless it's got, you know what, this little dang glue is gonna restrict it, I'll betcha. But let's see what happens. Oh no, it's gonna come right up through the top. Okay. There's your needle bar. The needle bar clamp just pulls straight out. And you see you've got more linkage back in here. This big screw here, yeah, I think you can probably see that. That big screw there has to come out. And I believe that there's a steel washer behind it. And then this piece here, this link here, attaches right into the little flywheel block on the end of the shaft. And it's held in with a couple of set screws, which of course you just loosen, you don't take them out. So I'm going to take out this big screw first, and I'm going to use a bigger screwdriver so I don't mung up the slot on that screw. And again, we don't want these parts to drop onto the bed and potentially chip it. There's the screw that came out of that linkage, and you can see that it's a shouldered screw. Anytime you have a shoulder on a screw, that's so the part can move even though the screw is tight. And then, as I said, there will be a washer that was behind that screw. It's fallen down to here. Just a kind of a thick, flat metal washer. And then let's see. This screw here has to come out, and I think you can probably see that the screw slot doesn't go all the way to the edges of the screw, and almost always that denotes a screw with a reverse thread. So this screw, if you turn it clockwise like you're tightening it, that's how you loosen it, and vice versa, of course. So turn it clockwise. All right, don't want to mung up the screw. You know what I have? I just started using this tool, and boy is it handy. This is a little impact driver. This one happens to be a Ryobi 18 volt. But it's just so good for loosening tight screws. And this would be a perfect place for it. Again, turn it like we're tightening it, and that takes it out. And I'll use a file and clean up that. You can see where I munged up this slot just a little bit. Then this linkage here should just pull right off. And this is your take-up lever, and that's what pulls your lock stitch up tight. Then this piece here is the piece that goes into that into this flywheel block back here. As I said, it's held in by a couple of set screws, which we're going to want to loosen up. And there's no way in the world that you're going to be able to see this while I'm doing it, but take my word for it. As far as I know, that screw that we just took off is the only reverse screw on this machine. So it's not something you have to worry about other than that. You have to look in here, and as you turn this, look for the set screw. Yeah, this one does only have one set screw. Pay attention to which direction this piece here is turned. It's this is the piece that actually goes into that block and gets cinched down with a set screw. And one side of the little shaft that goes in there is flat. The set screw goes up against it. So you want to put it back in the way it came out. And okay, not all of them are like this, but this elongated front part of it actually points to the set screw. And so when you put it back in, this threaded end here is going to go pointed directly towards the set screw in the side. And again, the set screw I'll get to through this little hole in the casting on this side. And it is right there. And just to loosen it a couple of turns, you don't have to take it out. If you take it out, it just adds to your job. And then get a hold of it with something and just work it on out of there. And we're going to have to loosen it up a couple of more turns to clear the end of that flat spot. I'll show you here. This is actually two pieces, and I'm going to pull that out so I can show you. You can see it's got a flat spot here, and at the end of the flat spot, it's got a lip there that you got to clear. So back your screw up a couple of turns, but don't take it out. And that's it. All of that is out of there, and I'm going to leave this, the presser bar and its block in place, and just clean them right there in place with alcohol. If I took off the hook and the hook race, I would be able to bring that presser bar on down and out of there. But if I did that, then we would have to retime the whole machine, and no sense making extra work for ourselves. Okay, so that's it for this section. In section 2, we're going to move on to, let's see, we'll take off the top plate and get in there and clean the movement points in there. We'll take the hand wheel off and clean the shaft. And we'll take the bottom off and clean and lubricate inside there. Boy, this machine looks brand new. Okay, well, thanks for watching.